big simcha to have Rabbi Paysach Krohn, international. I don't mean it's embarrassing. I have to introduce Rabbi Paysach Krohn, but international renowned speaker, lecturer, machanech par excellence,
and Moyle,
and Moyle, and don't forget that. Sorry, yes, I apologize. Moyle Ben Moyle, is that right?
Ben Moyle, a couple generations back.
We have a very unique chance to hear from Rabbi Krohn today, and Rabbi Krohn does not need me to ask him a great many questions, but I think it would be interesting in the context of this this special event with Hakshiva to hear a little bit maybe about Rav Krohn's background, maybe how life's changed a bit since he was a teenager, or a funny teenage story, or even a piece of advice that he might give himself if he went back to his teenage self, to give him some advice here from the future. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about Corona and how that's maybe affected, I guess, the planet, but also maybe Rabbi Krohn and the work that he does, and maybe tie it all together to Hakshiva.
Okay, so I just want to begin just first of all by thanking yourself for inviting me, and of course Rabbi David Sipper, and just to say that everything that we do tonight or this afternoon, hopefully we should be a schus for his wonderful, wonderful mother, Chana Sipper. She was a mechanecha, she was a menahelas, a headmistress at the Satmar School in Stamford Hill, a very, very dignified woman, very special woman of tremendous class. And unfortunately, for many, many years, she suffered from Parkinson's disease. And as Rab David mentioned, that they never saw her complain. She was Makabel Yisurim Ba'ava, which took a tremendous amount of strength and emunah. And so what we are going to be talking tonight about chizuk for a wonderful, wonderful organization called Hakshiva, which really deals with the future of Klal Yisrael. That's so important, and that's what Chana Sipper really stood for, to help the girls become the mothers of Klal Yisrael. And that's really what Hakshiva, and that's why I'm so proud to be part of this program and to encourage everybody to support it, because it really talks about not only today's children, but the future children of Klal Yisrael.
How would you describe your upbringing and your background?
Well, I'll tell you, I was very, very fortunate. I had wonderful, wonderful parents, and each one of them played a major, major role in my life. My father was a male, of course, and he was the wisest person that I ever met. In other words, any time that you had a question about what was going on either in the world, in the Torah world or the secular world, he had an opinion, and it was a tremendous opinion. It's funny that you should just remind me of something. I don't know why I just thought of that, but when I was in high school, I was on the debating team, and it's hard to believe. I remember what the question that we were debating was, should Red China be admitted to the UN? And what did I know about Red China? What did I know about the UN? I knew baseball and basketball. But I remember sitting in the kitchen with my father, and he was telling me whether Red China should be admitted to the UN. I could talk to him about anything. And it was a tremendous, tremendous Payach. Unfortunately, he passed away very young. Now, of course, when I was 21 and my father was 47, you think 47 is an old man. But of course, he was very young. And that's when I left Torah Das. I was in the yeshiva Torah Das. I was learning there full time. And then I had to support my family, my mother and my 6 younger brothers and sisters. So that was probably one of the turning points in my life. And it just brings me to tears every time that I think about it, because my involvement today, I'm involved with an organization called Samchenu, which is for almanas, and I'm involved with an organization called Links for Yisayimim that have lost a parent during their teenage years. And I go to their Shabbatons every Friday. I give a bracha to over 700 Yisayimim. I record it, and then it also goes to kids of single mothers. And I'm positive, not that I would be looking for this, but the fact that my father died and I lived with my mother, and even after I got married, with the furthest we ever lived from her was 2 blocks away. And so I saw what it means to be an almana and, to be Yisayimim. And so therefore that gave me a tremendous sensitivity, and my involvement in the tzibur, in those functions, is definitely because of what I saw growing up, as painful as it was. And certainly I didn't look for it, but that, that was an end result, because you just develop a sensitivity, for these people that are in very, very trying situations. Otherwise, until my father passed away, I used to learn with him every night. I never went to a dormitory yeshiva. I would go to Tervadas, I would travel, and then we had a Seder at night. I remember I was just telling someone last night, the first Masechta I ever finished was Masechta Tainis. It was my father. He was my night chavrusa. I mean, we started learning late, 10:30, because he had a lot of calls and everything like that. But, this was really something. And my mother, that's where I got all my writing from. I know that one of the questions you had posed to me was, how did I get into writing? Well, my mother was the greatest writer. She was unfortunately, she was born too early, because when she was growing up in the 20s and 30s, and, by 40s, and she got married in the 1940s, there were no Jewish magazines. There were no Jewish writers. There was no Ami and Mishpacha and Art Scroll and Feldheim and all that stuff, but she was a great writer. Now, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm telling it to you anyway, because it's the truth. My mother and I used to study the New York Times. Now, in those days, the New York Times was a decent newspaper. They weren't so anti-Israel. And, you could read. There was a writer called William Safire, and his writings were fabulous. And we used to underline expressions and say, how would we have written this? How would we have said this? And she taught me writing. And you asked me about a funny incident that happened in my teenage years. This is an amazing story. I've told this many times, that my mother went to PTA. You know what PTA is? You go to speak to teachers and find out how good or bad your kids are.
Yeah.
And my teacher, the English teacher, we loved him. He was a great guy, Mr. Hyman Ozer. He said to my mother, Mrs. Krohn, your son is never going to write a book. And my mother said that. I was in ninth grade, of 13, 14 years old. She said, Mr. Ozer, why do you say he won't write a book? Nah, he's too religious. Nobody's ever going to read what he writes. So I'm sure that by the time the next parent walked in, he surely forgot about what he said. But my mother didn't forget, and I certainly didn't forget. And 25 years later, when The Maggid Speaks, my first book with Art Scroll, came out, I went looking to see if this guy is still alive. And sure enough, he was the head of an English department at a modern day school, in a Jewish school in Long Island. And then I called him up. I said, Mr. Oza, do you remember you taught in Tervadas? He said, yeah, I had some good days there. I said, my name's Paysach Krohn. You remember me? He says, I think I do. I said, I got a present for you. When can I bring it? Oh, we got a present. Why, you could come tomorrow. So I drove out there, and I said, listen, there's no way that you could remember this, but you told my mother that I would never write a book. So I just want to show you. I just wrote a book of Jewish short stories, and I'd like to give it to you and autograph it. And he went crazy. He came out of his big desk. He put his arm around me. He took me into one of his classes, and he says, boys, I want to show you a former student of mine. He just wrote a book, and I taught him how to write. So let him think that he taught me how to write. But we became very, very close friends from that incident. And when he was, when he retired, I was the guest speaker at his dinner, at his retirement dinner. We became very close. And every book I've ever written, of course, I always send him, because he really was a wonderful person. So, when I was, you asked me if I had to give myself advice. I love that question, because I thought a lot about that. What would I tell my teenage self? It's a great, great question. And one of the things I think that I would tell myself is make your goals small. You see, as a teenager, you want to conquer the world. You want to know Shas. You're going to become, the Rav Moshe of the next generation. And what happens is that when you have these huge goals, it's nice, but it can be very defeating, because you're not becoming Rav Moshe, and you're not becoming the Paysach Krohn, and you're not going to be Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. So after a while, you begin to see, hey, this is crazy. I'm not retaining what I think I'm going to retain, and I'll never be that. So it could be very deflating. So I think that you've got to make your goals small, and more ma'at, Rav Segel used to say this, make your goals small, vasei harbe, then you'll be able to accomplish. Now, if I would have had this idea, then I would take, let's say, a certain Masechta, and I would say, okay, I'm going to learn this parak, I'm going to know it inside out. And then once I finish this parak, I'll go to the next parak, and then hopefully maybe I'll finish a Masechta. But when you start out, I'm going to finish this Masechta, and it's Bava Basra with 176 blot, you just getting lost in Cheskas Habatim, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you've got to make your goals. And then another thing also, my wife is a principal in a Hebrew girls' school and Sheva High School, and I asked her this question, and she said one of the things that she always tells teenagers, and this is really a good bit of advice: don't be susceptible to peer pressure. When you get to be an adult, I remember Rabbi Wein once told me that if you worry about what people say about you, you'll never accomplish anything. So you can do that as an adult, but you cannot do that as a teenager. When everybody's looking at you, you think, and everybody's judging you, and and there's a lot of peer pressure. So you have to be able to be above that. And I think the only way to be above that is to have a mentor, to have a good Rebbe, a good teacher that gives you the confidence, or a great parent that gives you the confidence that you could do anything. Now, my mother was that way. I had the greatest mother in the world. She believed that I could do anything. And you know something? When you have a mother, and that's what I want to say to all the people that are listening, you know what Hakshiva accomplishes? What they are doing in those therapy sessions and in those sessions in the pool room and with the girls' high school, they're telling the kids that they can do anything. And they're giving them confidence. That's the most important thing. And that's the biggest blessing of Hakshiva. And that's the biggest blessing that parents can do for their children. And my mother gave me that confidence. And that's why almost anything, I was not afraid to try anything. And it's only because I had a mother who believed in me. Now, I know that I was her oldest, and I always felt that I was a favorite. I hope my brothers and sisters are not going to watch this. But, she did love me, and she gave me that confidence. And that's what I would say. Get somebody who believes in you, and then you don't have to worry what your friends are thinking, because you'll accomplish a tremendous amount.
How's Corona been affecting Rabbi Krohn and the work he does?
I think, I must tell you, I know I'm in public now, but I must tell you that the first few weeks of Corona, after Shalosh Shudas, and I was only my wife and I told her I must go to sleep. I must go to sleep because I was terrified every Shabbos. What am I going to read? And what am I going to see on Yeshiva World? Or what newspaper is going to come in and say who passed away on Matzah Shabbos? It was so scary in the beginning when never so many people were dying, and great people and people that we knew. I had to sleep before I made Havdalah because I was just beyond myself. And that word that you use, Rabbi Marks, is exactly what amazing. It's exactly the word scary. So there's no question that my wife and we were home for the Siddharim. And I tell you the truth, you ask about something funny. There's not too much funny that happens during Corona, but we and my wife singing Zmiris, that was funny. I mean, never heard her sing before. When all the kids in the house, we sang every song together every Friday night. And I'll tell you, I'm about Tefillah. So I would daven, Kabbalah Shabbos, and I was a Chazan, she was a Tzibur. And so, and we said a lot of Divrei Torah. She's a brilliant woman. And so we were able to share a lot of Divrei Torah that I printed out that people sent me. And, that was wonderful, but it was scary. But as far as Brisson, what I've tried to do and is to have all the Brisson in the home, not in the shuls. Now we're beginning tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem in Mount Vernon. I have the rabbi's son, Rabbi Rosenfeld. He had a little boy. So that's going to be one of the first Brisson that I'm doing in a shul. But even then, we're going to keep the people far away. But otherwise, I have the father be the sandik. And he holds the baby in the room, in the house. And we try to do it near a window so that other people could see from the outside. And of course, everybody's zooming. And by the way, that's how Eliyahu Hanavi gets to all the Brisson around the world. I always wondered how he did that. And he did it on Zoom. That's how he does it. So he's all over the same place.
That's that mystery resolved.
What?
That's that mystery resolved.
Yeah, that's right. So I usually do it that only the father is in the room, maybe the mother, maybe a grandfather if he's the sandik, but everybody else is out. And of course, the sandik is wearing gloves and a mask and myself. But so that has affected Bris Milah. And tragically, a lot of non-frum people are not doing Brisson on the 8th day. They're doing it in the hospital. They're just afraid. They're absolutely afraid to have anybody come to the house or anybody touch their babies outside a hospital setting. And of course, today the mothers go home before the third, fourth day. So, it's very hard. You have to convince them. And, people are frightened. Like you say, the word is scary. That's the pivotal word. So that has affected Bris Milah, no question about it. And as far as speeches, oh my gosh, I'm not traveling anyplace. There were times when every week there were 9 out of 10 weeks I was away for Shabbos. And now 10 weeks in a row, I've been home for Shabbos. I used to travel all over. But now, of course, I'm giving 40 Zoom shiur a month. And that was in May and in June. And we'll see what happens in July. Now some people are in certain camps in New York. You can't have a day overnight camp, but in Pennsylvania you can. So I was calling some camps today. Maybe I'll go to some camps where they allow people to sleep there overnight. But it has affected terribly the amount of speeches. Although I will tell you this, there are now times when I can speak in 3 countries in one day because of the time zone. So 2 weeks ago, I spoke in Los Angeles and Panama and West Orange, New Jersey on the same day. And I'm sitting right here where I'm sitting right now. That's how I address these people. So on one hand, you don't have to travel, but it's you got a great smile, so we're connecting. But when you see all these people, on Zoom, you don't really connect. One guy's eating potato chips, one lady's on a treadmill, she doesn't realize I'm watching her. So the speeches are just not the same. I mean, I hope I give over what I feel very strongly about, but when you see the audience and they're laughing or crying or whatever, it's a totally different ballgame. I will tell you this though, that what I found, I have children and grandchildren, Baruch Hashem, Rebbeim and teachers, that many parents were listening in on the classes, and it reminds me of Sarah Schneer when she first began teaching the girls. The parents were so starved for education, for Torah education, that they would come and listen. And on Zoom, many times, like you said, if you zoom back, and you see that the father or the mother is sitting right there and enjoying the Rebbe. And
we actually did that in yeshiva. We've been doing teaching for 3 months in yeshiva, and we had Sunday. It was called SON Sunday, and mothers and fathers would join their boys in share for the first part of share every week. It was very nice.
That is fabulous. Sunday, we got to bring that to America. Sunday, that's great.
It was in America. It was brought to. These are boys to America, so it's already been bought.
Sunday, that's fabulous. That's great. That's great. You know what? There was 2 schools that I saw that they had Grandparents' Day. And I spoke for Rabbi Charner in Silver Springs, Maryland. They have Grandparent Day where they bring the grandparents in every year, let's say on a Sunday, and they sit on the class and they have lunch with the grandchildren or whatever. But now everybody was home. So I spoke about grandparents. So I want to give you a bracha because you're such a sweet guy. And I want to give you a bracha that you should be zeicha to do what I do, which I'm going to do tonight because it's Thursday. Now by you, it's already night, but here it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Every Thursday night, 11 o'clock, I have what's called a Zaidi conference call. That means that 11 o'clock, all my grandchildren over the age of 12 and 13, boys and girls, and all my children, they all get on the conference call, and I speak for about 15, 20 minutes. And I usually tell them a Dvar Torah that I learned or a story that I heard or something that I learned from Rabbi David Cohen. And this week, I'm going to tell them a great story, a joke. Can I tell it to you?
Please.
Oh, and this is amazing.
You've come to the right place, Rabbi.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Listen to this. This is amazing. I had to speak for a virtual dinner in Seattle, Washington. So Seattle's the opposite end of America, and that dinner is July 7th. So I had to record it. So I've been to Seattle twice, but I wanted to interview various people about the effect of the kollel. That's what they wanted, and so I spoke to this guy, Rabbi David Twersky, who's now lives, I think maybe he lives in Ramat Beit Shemesh. I don't know where he lives. He lives in Eretz Yisrael. But so he tells me that he worked for Boeing Airlines for 30 years. And one time they sent him to Las Vegas on a conference. So what's a Jewish boy doing in Las Vegas? So he wanted to know if there was any shuls. He looks up in the yellow pages and he sees there's an Orthodox shul. So he calls him up. He says, do you have minyanim? So the guy says, well, Shachris is 10 to 7 and Mincha is 25 to 1. He says, 25 to 1, isn't that early? He says, no, those are not the Zmanim. Those are the odds whether we'll have a minyan. 25 to 1.
Oh, it's in Vegas.
Yeah, that's Vegas. That's right. That's right. So I do want to tell you a vort that I think that really shows what Hakshiva is all about. Two things. You know, when Moshe Rabbeinu realized that he was going to pass away, the pasuk tells us in Bamidbar Chav Zayin, pasuk Tez Zayin, in Parshas Pinchas. Hashem says, Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, Yifkoid Hashem Elokei HaRuchos L'chol Basar. Hashem, you who are the master of all spirits, appoint somebody on the community. Isha La'eda. Why does it say Yifkoid Hashem Elokei HaRuchos? You, God, who knows the spirit of every person. Just say Yifkoid Hashem Isha La'eda. Just appoint somebody on the community. Why is this so important? Elokei HaRuchos. And Rashi says a fabulous thing. What Moshe was saying was, Rabbeinu Shalom, you know, you know every person. No two people are alike. Appoint a leader that can tolerate every person according to his mindset. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu added those words, because God, you understand that every person is different. And that's what leadership is all about. And that's why he wanted that Hashem should appoint somebody that has that sensitivity. And as I read the material that you sent me from Hakshiva, I see that's exactly what they're doing. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody can be the biggest Talmud Chacham, and not every boy can be the biggest Baal Chesed. Everybody's got different kishrainos. But as we said before, if you take the child and you make the child feel important, and that everybody's got his own mindset and everybody can be a productive Jew. That's what's important. Every Jew is important. God doesn't need two of anybody. Even identical twins are not really identical in their tnuas hanefesh and tchunas hanefesh. So everybody is needed. Everybody is important. And that's why I just can't get over Hakshiva, and I feel that everybody should support it, because, you know, that kid could be your son-in-law or your daughter-in-law someday, you know, even if your child is not there. And what we're doing with Hakshiva is not only for this generation, but it's the future generations of Klal Yisrael. And that's what's so important. And if I could say one more thing, if I may.
Please.
Okay. One of the most dramatic moments in the Torah is when Yehuda is standing in front of his brother Yosef. And we all know the story that they had a deal that whoever knapsack is going to be found, that little Gavia, that Becher, he's going to remain a prisoner. So Yosef says, listen, I want Binyamin. That's what we agreed. So listen to this statement, and we will see now how certain Rebbeim understood the Pasuk in a drash way, homiletical way, and how I understand it. And we'll see what Hakshiva is all about. He said like this, Eich ela el ovi. That's what he said to his father. That's what he said to Yosef. How am I going to go to my father? Vahanar einenu iti, and the child is not with me. That's in the beginning of Vayigash. Eich ela el ovi. How am I going to go to my father and the child is not with me? I promised him I was going to bring him back. So I once heard that a Rav said, none of us are going to live forever. Eich ela el ovi. How are we going to go to our Father in heaven? Vahanar, and our youth, we wasted our youth. The young years of our lives, which we could have accomplished so much, we wasted that. Our youth is not there. And somebody said, there's another shot. The word nar also means vibrancy. You find it by Yeshua. It says, Yeshua benu nar lo yomish mitoicha oyel. That's in Shema Yislam and Gimel Yud Aleph. And the Ebenezer asked a question, what do you mean nar? He was 56 years old. No, so the Ebenezer says, no, it means the vibrancy of naros. That's what it means. So now we could ask the question, Eich el Elovi, how are you going to go to your father on nar? You lost your vibrancy? What do you mean? A Jew can't be burned down. You always got to accomplish, no matter what. And a third shot is, what about your own children? Eich el Elovi, how are you going to go to your father in heaven? Vahanar, your children are not the way as frum as you wanted them to be, or as you are. What happened? And I add what Hakshiva is doing. Eich el Elovi, how are we going to go to our Father in heaven? Vahanar, and the children, the Heilige children of Klal Yisrael are not with us. What are we going to do about that? What are we going to answer? Tonight we could answer. We supported Hakshiva. And if we support Hakshiva, then all these children that may have gone off the derech, they're going to be right there with us. Because that's the therapists and the counselors and those people that are so supportive of these children, each in their own way. They're making them feel special. And that's what's going to save them. And we'll be able to bring every child that'll be a productive Jew. And that's why I'm, like, again, I can't say enough that how much everybody should support Hakshiva.
Rabbi, thank you so much for those divrei bracha and for your support of this amazing evening, and to have the chance to hear from such a unique person on this time is really, really, really special for me personally.